This video is for people trying to get their mesh network to work on their Synology, or getting the guest network to work in a mesh system using smart switches. This is just kind of what I figured out. It worked for me. I did struggle with it for a little while. I had tagging problems and so on. So basically this is the map that we're going to run through here. My ISP going into a Sonicwall TZ-270, where virtual interfaces and DHCP scopes have been set up for the VLANs, including the one that is required for the guest network to work on a mesh, all with their own DHCP scopes. Going down to the 48 port switch, and this is all in building number 1, smart switch, sending a .30 and a .17, my primary and my guest network, or what I'm going to call Internet of Things network, to Synology RT6600AX, or this is access point number 1. Both Synologies are in access point mode. I'm letting my Sonicwall do all the routing jobs with the security services running and so on. Again, coming through the wireless only here in access point number 1. .30 is my primary network, both wired and wireless. .17 using tag 1733 is for Internet of Things or guest network. Things like CCTV, TVs, Fire Sticks, etc. Also coming out of this 48 port switch is my primary network for PCs to all talk to each other, printers and so on. And just a couple other VLANs popping out of there as well. Moving them across the line to building number 2. This 48 port switch, I'm using port 48, is carrying these VLANs out into the shop, or building 2, into another 8 port smart switch, which splits off to a dumb switch for my .30s or my primary network, and a .40 for a work network. Not going to get too much into this one, but you can see the basic idea. We're going to want to separate these. Moving from the 8 port smart switch, still in building number 2, but room number 2, is moving down, carrying VLAN 30 and VLAN 1733 into the final 16 port smart switch, which then spits out to the Synology WRX560, or what I'm going to say, access point number 2. So we got 3 smart switches in here. Access point number 2, same as number 1. Primary network, Internet of Things or guest network. I had trouble getting this guy to work downstream here. And so I'm just sharing what I figured out. I'm not saying it's 100% the way to do it or any of that, but I got it to work and it's working great. And then also coming out of the final switch is .30 for my primary PCs out there, Linux box, so on. Also coming out of here is a .40. For some reason I didn't draw that, because I have half of this switch split. The bank on the right, or ports 9 through 16, are for work computers, or .40s. And again, I have firewall rules set up in the Sonicwall for network isolation, which that will not be covered in this video. Okay, so here's the Sonicwall TZ-270. Basically all the exports coming out represent a virtual network feeding into this 48 port switch. Each network kind of has its own bank, and all the rooms in the house are centrally wired to this location. This port here is the tagged line that goes out to building number 2, carrying V20, V30, V40, and V1733. Here's the first stop in our chain. I'm in the Sonicwall TZ-270, and to get the Synologies to work, so I created a virtual interface through the X7 port of the Sonicwall that feeds into that 48 port switch that I showed. And this is tagged 1733 for the Synology. Here's my Internet of Things zone with the tag 1733. This is the rest of my LAN, all clustered into the LAN zone. Probably not the best way to do it, but for now I just wanted to separate these zones for this example. Security services running on it, and again, the Internet of Things is all for cameras, Fire Sticks, TVs, all those kind of devices, picture frames, to keep them separated from my other zone in my LAN. Going over to DHCP server. These are the current scopes. So for that virtual interface, I created a DHCP scope giving out 17s, kind of a small range, keeping it simple. The key is the 1733 has to be present to get the guest network to work on the Synologies, and I'm in access point mode on both routers. Alright, here we are in the first switch in the chain, immediately after the Sonicwall TZ-270, and I'm in switching VLAN. Created a VLAN ID of 1733. Click on membership. And again, for my wireless, I have the 30 is my primary network, so that I can talk to anything on that same network, whether wired or wireless. .48 port, as shown earlier, is tagged going out to building number 2. 30 is tagged. This bank is for PCs or whatever you want to plug in that will get a .30. Here, this port 7 is coming from the X7 port on the Sonicwall, tagged. Output is untagged, and this goes to the number 1 access point in building number 1. Untagged for my primary. 1733 for the Synologies. Again, coming out of the router, the Sonicwall router, tagged number 7. 8 is going out to access point number 1 in building 1, but 1733 is tagged. The PVIDs, this one comes out of the Sonicwall router. It looks to me as though the primary PVID is enough. As long as these tags are in there, you do not have to make the PVID 1733. So this goes out to access point 1 in the house. The line that comes out to building number 2 is port 48, as shown in the earlier clip. Again, PVID is 30. Here's all the VLANs coming out, and recently added 1733. At first I was trying the PVIDs as 1733 right here, and right here going out to the access point number 1, but I couldn't get it to work, so I changed back to my primary and just have the tags there. Building number 1, this is the first Synology router in access point mode. First part of the mesh. Coming into the internet port is Ethernet cable with VLANs 30 and VLANs 1733. Here we are in the Synology access point number 1, building 1. Here's our main local networks. This is my primary network. We're not using the ports because we're in access point mode. Here's the Internet of Things network or the guest network, DHCP server is disabled on the Synology because if you remember back at the first point in the Sonicwall router, we created an interface with its own DHCP scope issuing the 17s. So we'll edit this one and you can see the guest network, or what I'm calling Internet of Things, 1733. And here's the Wi-Fi connect. Primary, secondary, isolated, all getting their addresses from the Sonicwall, the first router in the chain. Here's our separate Wi-Fi points. The AX in the house, the WRX in the shop. Uplink or backhauled by wire. And client list. So yeah, that is the Synology side of it. As long as you have on your Wi-Fi points, it's easy to get the guest network to work on the main one. But if you're coming down through more smart switches, that's what this video is for, to make the guest network, function down the line. Building number 2, we have the primary and the guest both functioning. Here we are in switch number 2, building number 2, room number 1. We've created our VLAN ID of 1733. Our members are as such. 30 is our primary. This is the main tagged line or trunk line coming from building number 1 that carries the V20, V30, V40, and now the V1733. Port number 5 is going out to Synology access point number 2 in room number 2 in building number 2. 1733, again, the main coming in, tagged going out to the Synology access point number 2. That has to be consistent with all of the switches. My primary is untagged going into access point number 2. My Internet of Things tagged, also going into access point number 2. PVIDs, again, we can just keep them as the primary as long as the 1733 is present. Port number 5 on this switch number 2 goes out to access point number 2. G6 is a port where I have a network video recorder plugged in, and I wanted it to be on the same network as some of the wireless cameras. We can ignore this one for now. It is active and it is working properly. It's not part of this tutorial. Here's the final switch in the mix, 16-port smart switch. The yellow port coming out of there is the one that's carrying the .30 for my primary network, both wired and wireless. And it's also carrying the VLAN tag 1733 for the Synology access point number 2. We are out here in building number 2. That's an Ethernet backhaul. Okay, here we are in the third and final switch in the chain, room number 2 and building number 2. I have these 3 VLANs set up. Here's the one for Synology. Membership being the endpoint, I didn't really change the ones. Everything seems to be working as is. Here's the VLAN 30, which is my primary for both wired and wireless. Main tagged line. Ports for workstations. 30 untagged going into the Synology access point number 2. I'm going to skip the 40s. It's just for work ports. I can plug in client computers and keep them separate. 1733 for the Synology, which remember that tag has to be there for the guest network to work in mesh mode down the line from access point number 1. Main tagged line going out again into access point number 2 has to be tagged 1733. 30 untagged going out to access point number 2. So here we are back in the Sonicwall TZ-270 looking at the network topology, and we can see our V30, our VLAN issuing .30 to the devices there. Phones, computers. Then the V40 for work computers, don't have much running on it right now. But here is what is set up for the Synology MESH network to work. Guest network 17. We got a camera, an NVR, and something else on the 17. V1733 required from top to bottom, from start to finish, beginning to end, to get the guest network to work downstream in a Synology MESH.